I'm going to try to answer the question of what is patentable. The easy answer is anything that you come up with that's new and not obvious. But that doesn't actually answer the question. And so I'm going to try to put a couple different buckets up here. And the buckets are in terms of maybe hardware and software. Maybe it's making a method of making that hardware or a method of using that software. And these are generally the types of things that can be patented. But from that, I want to move into this particular diagram. And this is all about abstraction layers. Abstraction layer is essentially the concept. At this thing right here, what is this? What's that? It's a cup. It's a coffee cup. It's a container. I like to call it my adult sippy cup because it doesn't leak. Who's here a mechanical engineer that's put together a CAD file at some point? How big is the CAD file if you're going to take this and ship it off to China and have it come back exactly like this? Same color, same texture, same spring loaded, everything. How big is that CAD file?
Pretty big.
Just a wild guess. 2 gigabytes?
Maybe.
Okay, great. So I could describe this in 2 words. Sippy cup, or maybe drink container. And I could also describe the same thing in 2 gigabytes. Right? Same thing. I'm pointing the same thing. It could be described in 2 words or 2 gigabytes. And for those that don't know gigabytes, it's a lot. I mean, that's just a lot of words. Isn't it? I mean, so this is a very, very important first step. And the media gets this thing wrong all the time. When you're talking about inventions, and you're talking about them at the super high level, at this very, really broad concept layer, it's never going to be patentable. A while ago, when Amazon patented the one-click, that's what the media said. They patented one-click. How could that possibly be? Haven't we all clicked a button once before? How could Amazon click? How could they protect one click? It wasn't really just one click. It wasn't just those 2 words that Amazon had protected. The patent office knew that. Amazon knew that. It was this combination of moving information back and forth from a server, being able to wait for a particular type of response after displaying things, and be able to process this, accessing a cookie, and then going through with a transaction. It was about 200 words that they actually protected. The code may have been 20,000, 200,000, 2 million lines of code. But there's an abstraction layer in there. It would have been great had they just got one click. Then every single time anyone clicks one button, then they'd be able to sue them. But that's not what they actually got. They got something that was a little bit different, a little bit more narrow than that. Imagine if Amazon had a patent on all, let's just say, 200,000 lines of code for one click. Would that be valuable? Why not? What's that? Yeah, I mean, you could just change one of the lines, right? I mean, 200,000 is a lot. Like, you would just change one line and then you wouldn't infringe anymore. But my guess is that no one's ever done 200,000 lines just like that before. And so maybe it's patentable. And this is what I'm trying to show over here. That you could take just about anything and say, this is patentable. And you could say, the same exact thing, it's not patentable. And you could say that patent would be incredibly valuable. And you could say that patent would be absolutely worthless. And yet I'm talking about the same thing. And so when people talk about this in generality of like, well, patents are useless, they're talking about one particular end of this particular abstraction layer. And when they talk about it as, this is the most valuable thing that we own, they're talking about it within a particular abstraction layer. And when we say that there's no way that that thing is patentable, they're talking about one abstraction layer. And when they say that this is for sure patentable, again, they're talking about one particular abstraction layer. Turns out that inventions, the ones that you actually protect at the patent office, are somewhere around 150 to 400 words. It's not 2. It's not 2 billion. It's about 200. And at that particular level, you start to get at things that no one's ever done before. And at that same exact level, you're playing in a field where now you'll be able to protect something and people won't be able to make a small modification. It's a top 4 container, including an orifice and a spring-loaded seal. A cantilever goes across the orifice, actuatable by a thumb to depress the seal and to be able to allow fluid in. The default state of that particular spring is up, and so that any other fluid that when it's being tilted pushes up against it and doesn't leak out. I wasn't counting. It's hard to count and kind of create a quasi-claim at the same time in front of 80 people, but that was probably somewhere around 200 words, give or take. And at that point right there, that's something that's really valuable that this particular company could have gotten. Could a competitor made a little change? Well, they could have made a major change, but it would be a different change. It would be a different design. At that particular layer, which is that middle piece right there, that's going to be something that's patentable. Have you seen this before? Has anyone ever done this before? Probably not. This thing is probably patentable at that abstraction layer. And it's probably very valuable at that abstraction layer. And this right here is the key to understanding what is patentable. Just pick up just about anything, any gadget that you own, and you could think of it in terms of like, oh, sippy cup, not patentable. Oh, 2 gigabyte CAD file, very patentable. Sippy cup, that'd be awesome to have if I would be able to protect that. 2 gigabytes, pretty worthless. But there's an abstraction layer in between that's where patent attorneys play, and that's where we're trying to find those 200 words that make it so that it's very valuable and very patentable. And that's what we call invention.